This fall on New Mexico in Focus, we are talking with local leaders about entrepreneurship in Albuquerque. We recently heard from Gary Oppedahl, head of Albuquerque's Economic Development Department, and there's a push right now to promote not only the values of entrepreneurship, but also to encourage people to look for opportunities to start a business or another venture. And some say the best time to start is in the classroom. This week, our producer Sarah Gustavus sat down with leaders from UNM and CNM to talk about education and entrepreneurship.
I have a great group with me here today. I'm joined by Dr. Robert Del Campo, a professor in the Anderson School of Management and director of the Innovation Academy at UNM. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Also, Regina Chavez-Puchetti, lecturer in the Arts Management Program in the College of Fine Arts at UNM and in the Interdisciplinary Film and Digital Media Program known as IFDM. Thanks for sitting down with us.
You bet.
We also have Debbie Johnson, Director of Entrepreneurial and Economic Development at CNM. Thanks for being here, Debbie.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Rob, I'm going to start with you. Some leaders we've brought in so far have talked about an entrepreneurial mindset, thinking like an entrepreneur, even if you're not starting a business right away. What does that mean in the classroom?
Well, it's important. I mean, what we're trying to do is prepare people for careers, whatever that may be, right? I mean, you might want to go work at Sandia National Labs for 20, 25 years and retire. And the skills that entrepreneurs have are things that employers are looking for, right? Collaboration, teamwork, leadership, creativity, innovation. So what we're really trying to do is provide them the opportunity to be the most successful in their career, but also the most marketable in our job market, right? Because it's not that they're going to go start a business right away, but how can they address a job that they might have? How could they improve that job? How could they, improve processes, make things a little smoother, et cetera? So that's what we're really trying to do in terms of infusing these entrepreneurial concepts into multiple classes throughout the curriculum.
And Regina, what about those creative students in your classes, encouraging them to be an entrepreneur? What kind of things do you talk with them about?
Well, we talk a lot about taking personal responsibility. Things like, what can I do to be more professional? What can students do to show up, meet their deadlines, and really make themselves as professional as maybe the business students, engineering, medicine, law, whatever it might be, and to give them that credibility. And then we build on their skill sets as well that Rob was mentioning. So, and the other thing I really focus on is giving them those career options, that there are lots of opportunities out there for them, and it's up to them to decide if they want to go after it.
Now, to be entrepreneurs, though, would they create those opportunities for themselves, starting their own business or marketing themselves as a creative professional?
Well, yes, it's taking advantage of those opportunities, making those opportunities, and seeing what resources are out there. There's more than what one might think when you start digging around and seeing what's available to them.
And Debbie, why has CNM decided to start focusing on entrepreneurship with your students?
Well, actually, we've been talking about it and teaching it for several years, but lately we've sort of brought it to the forefront, and we're seeding it throughout the curriculum at the school, and we're actually doing a licensed entrepreneurial mindset program at the Stimulus Center downtown, which we're very excited about, because as Rob said, it is a mindset, and it's their leadership skills more than they are entrepreneurial skills, or as much as they are, because you can be an entrepreneur at any level in a company. You don't have to, the French word entrepreneur actually means to take deliberate action. It doesn't mean to start a company. And so taking action at any level of a company, in any industry, in any career is really important. And they are skills like problem solving and making the right choices, collaboration, working as a team, serving customer needs is huge in terms of the entrepreneurial mindset. So those are skills that are usable and valuable in any profession, at any level, in any company, in any city. And so we're delighted that Albuquerque is really at the forefront. The mayor, in fact, is determined to make Albuquerque one of the most entrepreneurial cities in the country, and he's sending 100 city employees through our entrepreneurial mindset training so that they can learn. And it's people from all levels, from director levels to solid waste folks. It's been great.
And why do you think that this is important for New Mexico right now? How is this going to make us different?
Well, small business is a huge part of New Mexico's business, and our economic development opportunities lie largely in developing our own, and so that's specifically why it's important. But I also think that mindset and entrepreneurship is a cultural thing, and we have a wonderful work ethic, I think, in New Mexico, and a culture of hard work and persistence and determination, and all of those things come to the forefront when you're talking about entrepreneurial training, and I think can set us ahead of other parts of the country if we're known for it. And I really credit the mayor for making that a focus, and we're thrilled at CNM to be making it one of ours as well.
Mindset's one thing, but Rob, some students may really want to start a business while they're still in
Absolutely.
school.
Sure.
What do you tell them then?
Great, go for it. Please do. I mean, it is, as Debbie was kind of saying, and we're kind of alluding to, this economic development strategy is a way for us to create a sustainable environment here in Albuquerque, right? We don't need to rely on federal dollars, state dollars. We create our own businesses. People get interested in them. They hire people. Every job that we bring here from an entrepreneurial standpoint brings, 4 or 5 others, right? There's this multiplier effect. So if students want to do that, I would love to send them out of University of New Mexico with, they've already got their business running, and then they kind of get their degree on the way. And that's what we're responding to. This is what students are looking for and they're really interested in. So it's kind of responding to the needs of our customer here. And students are saying, I need skills, I need support in doing these things, or I'm already doing them. I mean, how many students have entrepreneurial endeavors that they're doing, whether it be, even something small like babysitting or mowing lawns, but a lot of them are building websites, they're coding, they're developing apps, all this stuff already. So we're saying you're already doing this and you're learning so much. How do we combine this with our already sometimes inflexible curriculum to kind of package that together and make UNM more marketable, make Albuquerque more marketable, make the state of New Mexico more economically sound?
Regina, some of your students are already getting paid to do their creative work.
Well, they are. A lot of them have started businesses while in school, while in college, and whether it's maybe as a small sound studio out of their garage, or maybe doing photography, or working in a gallery, or whatever it might be, a lot of them have already started their businesses and are looking to fill in the gaps of knowledge and how can they be more successful. A few years ago, the Kellogg Foundation did a study about cultural entrepreneurship across the nation, and one of the findings was that New Mexico has a much higher percentage of cultural entrepreneurs in our community, and we see that in our students at UNM, especially in the fine arts, when a lot of them are artisans and are fine artists, and they really want to improve their odds of success by filling in those gaps and developing those skills. So we are happy to do so.
Well, going along with that, right, you would say that, so dancers, musicians, these sorts of things, they're going to be contractors mostly for the rest of their life, and they are an entrepreneur. They have a business which is themselves and their talent. So how do we get them to realize that and capitalize on that in the most effective way? And I think, and Regina's been a great supporter of what we're trying to do here at UNM. I think it's a program that students need, they realize that they need, and again, the response to what the students are looking for is paramount.
And it's also, not just students, it's employers. Absolutely. I think a lot of what we're doing is responding to employer needs. There's certainly a lot of needs for skill up, but skills are as important these days as degrees and certificates. And UNM and CNM are actually working together in a lot of exciting ways. There's some pathways to education, and Rob and I actually work closely together and talk about that frequently because they're high-tech businesses, and then as Rob said, there are cleaning stores, shops and childcare people and cosmetology and all kinds of industries and small businesses that can thrive here in this environment.
And it all fits together too, right? I think that that's what's great about working with CNM and working with a great number of people around the university. We've seen this ecosystem is really starting to take shape, and everyone is kind of chipping in. So it's not only the existing jobs that we have in this intrapreneurship kind of thing that we're looking at and making people more prepared for the existing jobs, but how do we take it to the next step? And is that tomorrow? Maybe not. Could be in 3 or 4 years, but here are the resources that are available from the city, from the state, from UNM, from CNM, from various different private entities that, maybe in a couple of years you see something that, hey, I could make that product better, or, this coffee mug, what if the handle was on the bottom instead, or I don't know, but there's all sorts of great opportunities.
Now, why would you want students to finish school, though? Let's say we hear about great successful entrepreneurs like Mark Zuckerberg, but even someone who's just doing really well and making a living, why should they finish their education, complete their degree?
Well,
Go ahead.
That's an interesting question, right?
They should. We both want them.
Yeah, they got to complete their degree. But, obviously the goal is for them to complete their degree, but I think the college experience, whether it be a 2-year degree, a 4-year degree, a graduate degree, is really what we're selling, right? We're trying to create an environment where we can say, that's what you want to do, great, we're going to be supportive of that, and you can get this same social experience, you can build networks. We have so many students who say to me every day, hey, Rob, I want to be in this Innovation Academy, but I want to meet other like-minded people to work with. I want co-founders, right? And that's amazing. And you don't get that anywhere else other than in a university. And when you put that seal of approval and you say, this is a UNM program, this is a CNM program, you're really making a statement that this is a safe place to do these things, a safe place to potentially fail, which is a great learning opportunity, right?
Absolutely.
And why not do that now when you're a student, when you're, if you're a traditional age student in your, early 20s, rather than, when you're out there and you got a couple of kids or some parents that you're taking care of, and there's a lot more at risk.
And one of the platforms of entrepreneurial mindset is persistence, and getting a degree or a certificate is persisting, and it demonstrates a lot about what a person's got inside to get them through. So it really is important to do both. But what's great about UNM and CNM working together is obviously a university has a lot of high-tech programs as well, and at a community college level we do the technicians that support the PhDs. So it's really a marriage when you're talking about a business, because you need both.
Regina, what about students making connections in the classroom?
They make a lot of connections in the classroom, whether it's online or face-to-face, and I teach both of those. But, just to echo what Robin and Debbie have been saying, I really feel like it's important for students to really solidify those connections, but to really build on them, and finishing their degrees is really helpful for that. It's not only the network and the connections, but it's also filling in those gaps. It's also building on not only those hard skills, but their professional soft skills. And then I think that's really important when you're out in the workforce. Whether you're working for someone or whether you have your own business, we want our students to be successful. So we, as higher institution representatives, we need to make sure that we're adaptable to our students' needs.
Rob, you just mentioned failure and students being a safe place to fail in school. What are the risks when the students are out in the business world? It can be a really tough place with people who might take advantage of you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what we're trying to do here, is create a safe space for students to do their sort of entrepreneurial endeavors. Entrepreneurship, the term entrepreneur, a lot of people don't like that, right? There's some problems with it, and I know that the city has been working on trying to change that mindset, and nationally and internationally that's an issue. But there are people out there looking to take advantage of other people's ideas. That's a reality of the sort of startup entrepreneurship kind of culture. And students need to learn how to interact with that and understand, what's a good deal, what's not a good deal. It's probably unlikely I'm going to have 100% equity in my company forever, right? But how can we at least kind of shield them a little bit and teach them about what they need to know so that then they can make informed decisions? And that's what we're trying to do by putting the stamp of approval on it. That's part of the responsibility of the university, to say that the programs we're providing a safe space to do these things. And you might fail. And that's okay, because this is a learning experience. And maybe the worst thing that happens is you start a nonprofit organization and a couple people get a couple bucks that wouldn't have had it before. That's fine. It's a learning experience, and guess what? You got 3 credits out of it.
And Debbie, not all students are young. We talked about students in their early 20s, but some students are actually coming back into school.
Oh, absolutely.
Wanting to change careers or wanting to start a business. What's available for them?
Oh, lots. Actually, the average age the average age range at CNM, and I'm sure UNM is rising, is from 18 to 65. We have plenty. We have lots of senior citizens, lots of veterans, lots of opportunities for them, and they're wonderful about failure. There's one of the foundations of all the entrepreneurial training is pivoting, and that is, as Rob said, you learn from your mistakes and you just pivot. And because a lot of any kind of business, whether you start it or you work for someone else, is responding to customer needs, you need to hone in on they don't want that, they want that, or they need that, and that's where you pivot. And so it's failure, but it's healthy failure, and it's productive failure. And I think that the Zuckerbergs of the world, even though they may be high school or college dropouts, they're continuous learners, and they do go back to school. And so a lot of higher ed institutions, like all of us here, have in and out education these days, and that is, even if you don't finish your degree or your certificate at one particular session, well, come on back, because we have accelerators, we have classes, we have accelerated degrees, there are all kinds of incubators. There, as Rob said, the entrepreneurial environment in Albuquerque is terrific. It's very green, and I don't mean that just in the green sense, but just in the growing sense.
And what do you hope to see in the next couple of years, Regina?
Well, I really hope to see our students taking more advantage of what we have to offer, and not just locally, but certainly statewide, regionally. I think there are a lot of opportunities. I think UNM and CNM have both been terrific about adapting to our students and to see these programs blossom. I mean, the IFDM program, New Mexico is a growing locale for the film industry, and we are producing students who are working here, who are working in movies, and it's very gratifying to see that. And in arts management, we're seeing that too, students who are graduating and getting out there and working at a lot of different companies with their creativity intact and with the skills that they need to compete professionally.
And how are you going to measure success for the Innovation Academy, Rob?
Well, there's a lot of different ways. It could be number of failed businesses, that would be okay, right? It could be number of students that are interested in getting things done, starting new companies. But really, we're looking at just having successful graduates, right? We're not looking at the number of businesses created. We're not looking at the success those businesses created, because eventually they will be successful. We're looking for students who have tons of open doors when they leave the university. So they can go work for a traditional bricks and mortar Main Street type company. They can go work for a high tech company. They could start their own. They might start their own in 3 or 4 years. It's really more nuanced than a simple number that we can look at. But I think what we're really committed to is the state of New Mexico, the city of Albuquerque, fundamentally changing the economic structure, right? We're going to do it ourselves. And this isn't like a politically driven kind of statement. It's, this is very sustainable. If we have people who are capable and understanding of the ecosystem and what they can do, that's really what's going to demonstrate success on our part.
You agree, Debbie?
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's also enrollment and interest. I mean, shout out to Rob here, because I think in Innovation Academy you were aiming for 20 and you have 200. And down at the Stimulus Center in downtown Albuquerque, we have constant enrollment. We have a waiting list now for our coding boot camp, which is fabulous, our accelerated degree. So they're little teeny waiting lists, so it's worth the wait. But people are really interested, and students of all ages are taking note.
Well, thank you all for sitting down and talking with us about education and entrepreneurship.
Thank you.
Thank you.